Live? Okay, we're ready to go live, but we're gonna take a couple minutes to allow everybody to join us. So in the meantime, we've got a lovely promo reel that we can show you, and I'll see you in a couple minutes. Okay. What? Hello and welcome to Miss Cheesemonger Sings 2021. We are trying this virtual format this year, which is a little weird, I do admit, but it allows a lot of people from across the country and around the world to join in. So we've got a lot of new folks here this year. Welcome. I just wanted to explain a little bit why I have decided to create this cheese pairing recital. Well, of course, I've been singing for over 10 years and I have been working in cheese for over 10 years as well. Singing and cheese, they have a wonderful way of elevating our emotions. Of course, music, though, is very ephemeral, especially live, and it's just magical. It's there for a moment and then it's gone. Cheese, on the other hand, is a product of the earth, a product of its environment. There are animals, landscape, people, microbes involved. You can really touch it and feel it and get a sense of place from it. And together, combined, this ephemeral music with this really tangible cheese, they play off each other in completely new ways and allow us to create new sensory experiences because they allow us to use all of our minds, all of our bodies, and all of our emotions all together. So, this year I have created a program of 8 classical pieces. Each one is paired with a specific cheese or food item. And so this is indeed a cheese pairing. It's not just a random cheese eating thing and concert. Each piece is specifically paired. So you have received a package that should include eight items. Each one is numbered and labeled so you know when they show up in the program. I'll also point them out to you as we go along so you know where we are, especially if you've created a cheese board and you've kind of mixed them all up and don't know where everything is. Hopefully as well you have taken your cheeses out 30 minutes before our tasting so that they can warm up to room temperature and you can get all of the aromatics and the full tasting experience as we go along. Alrighty, so what does it mean to really taste cheese? Of course, it's easy to nosh on a cheese, but have you ever really taken the time to taste it? Our tongues are wonderful tools in tasting, but of course they only can sense salty, sweet, bitter, sour, and umami notes. Everything else actually comes from our noses, and so I really strongly encourage you to use your noses today with every single cheese that we're going to taste. And how do we do that? Well, first off, before you bite into it, just take a whiff of that cheese. I usually get about 80% of my tasting information just from smelling the cheese before I taste it. And then when you finally do get to put it in your mouth, let it sit on your tongue for a little bit and breathe in slowly through your nose with the cheese still on your tongue, and then breathe out strongly through your nose, keeping the cheese still there. Just try not to choke on it. But that allows all of the aromatics in the cheese to pass through your nose, all your receptors, and you can get the full flavor. So what kind of full flavor am I talking about? Well, there are cheeses here that have butterscotch notes, freshly cut grass, slate, maple syrup, etc. Those things are not the realm of the tongue, they are the realm of our noses, and so please use them. All right, everything looks all set to go. So we are going to start with our first tasting and first pairing. Song number 1 is called Nuit d'étoiles, Starry Night. It's by Claude Debussy. And the cheese that I have paired with it is called Leo. It looks like this. Beautiful sheep's milk cheese. In the story, or in the song, the main speaker is staring out at a starry night, alone. She gazes up at the stars, and they inspire her to think of her past loves. This refrain, starry night, the breeze blows around me, and I think of my past loves. It repeats 3 times and grows more and more wistful with each singing. The verses go into more and more detail about her past lovers, and the mood sort of shifts. It becomes dreamy, then maybe a little joyous, and then maybe a little wistful towards the end. I'll let you decide how you would like the arc of the song to flow. So this cheese, Leo, by Shooting Star Creamery, is based in Paso Robles. The cheesemaker is a young woman named Avery Jones. She's only about 18 years old. She's going to start college in the fall, so she has quite a long career ahead of her. Her father is Reggie Jones. Reggie is the owner of Central Coast Creamery. He's one of America's, one of California's most celebrated artisan cheesemakers. And so he raised Avery, surrounded by cheese, of course. And when Avery was about 15 or 16 years old, she decided that she'd like to try her hand at making her own recipes. She made another cheese called Aries and entered that in the American Cheese Society award competition. And she ended up beating out about 2,000 other cheeses to win 3rd place Best in Show. That was a fiery start to a young cheesemaker, and she has continued to grow her repertoire of cheeses, and all of them are named after constellations. After Aries, there's Leo, and there's Scorpio as well. She is a very accomplished young woman. She's also a straight-A student, and she performs in the theater and plays sports. She is indeed a shooting star of the artisan cheese world. So as for this pairing, of course, as we are gazing up at the starry night in the song, what better way to commemorate the moment than to gaze ever lovingly at Leo, a cheese named after the constellation Leo. And what I really wanted all of us to take away from this is to marvel at the inspiration that the stars give us, and how they've inspired us over the ages. For as long as people have looked at the night sky, people have felt moved. They have felt inspired to create something. In this case, Starry Night poetry or cheese. They inspire people to remember somebody or something or some event. I would like you to think about, when was the last time you gazed up at the night sky? When did you last tell the stars your secrets? When did you remember somebody or something? And when did you last feel inspired to create something? So with that, let us visit. Oh, no, wait, I haven't even given, wait, one more time. I almost forgot. Let me give you the tasting notes of the cheese. So we've got a sheep's milk cheese here. It's kind of got a spongy paste, which is the inside. And it smells almost like freshly cut grass to me, which is a wonderful springtime aroma. And then with that, once you bite into it, you're going to taste a little bit of sourdough, chives, a little bit of mushroom, of course, but it's all around like bread and onions. And it's a really wonderful but delicate tasting experience. The sheep's milk cheese, also because it's got a higher fat content, leads to an extra sort of sweetness and richness on the tongue. So enjoy that as we visit Starry Night, Nuit d'étoiles. Okay, like, yeah. Oh wait, the cheese, it tastes like. hello again. Now, we move into the heart of the program, the song cycle Nuit d'été, Summer Nights by Hector Berlioz, and poetry by Théophile Gautier. Happily it starts on a happy note. The cheese for this pairing is Meredith Dairy Sheep and Goat's Milk Cheese. Ta-da! It's the one that's marinated in herbs and garlic oil. All right. So this song is one of anticipation, excited anticipation. In it, the speaker invites his new love to walk through the woods with him, where they will experience all sorts of romantic things together. They'll witness flowers like lily of the valley. They will get to observe forest animals like rabbits, nesting birds, deer. Eventually, they will whisper sweet things into each other's ears, and at some point, they will decide to go home together, gathering wild strawberries along the way. So this cheese, this marinated sheep and goat's milk cheese, has a pretty nondescript name, but it really belies the addictiveness that lies within. It's made by Meredith Dairy. They're in Meredith in Victoria, Australia. It's a husband and wife team, Sandy and Julie Cameron. They've come to the farming industry from other professions. Sandy used to be a veterinarian and Julie used to be a nurse. And they started farming in the late 80s, offering just produce at first. But then in the early 90s, they realized that they needed to add more value to their farm, and then so started adding sheep's milk cheese and then goat's milk cheese. And that's ended up being the winning combination for them, because now they export their cheeses all over the world and gain new fans year after year after year. So this cheese comes in this really wonderful cube shape. It's like a satin pillow of cheese for you, and it feels like satin on your tongue. It tastes like satin, almost. It tastes a little bit citrusy at first, but of course the marinated garlic and herbs add an extra depth to it, especially as it lingers on the finish. It becomes quite rich, thanks again to sheep's milk qualities, that they have that extra richness in them. So this pairing is the song is a celebration of spring, renewal, new life, rebirth, new love, and there are so many symbols of spring in the song. For instance, lily of the valley, muguet. That's a flower that's given to mothers every year in France for Mother's Day, because it's a symbol of new life and birth. Nesting birds, it's pretty obvious, and wild strawberries. They're also a symbol of birth and pregnancy and renewal and springtime in France. So I just wanted to add to all of those symbols by including sheep and goat's milk, because it too is a symbol of spring. Sheep and goats actually do dry up in the winter time, so they do not produce milk. And then they only start producing again when they have their babies in the springtime. And that's when their milk is supposed to be the freshest tasting, the most nutritious, and the most flavorful. I definitely learned that when I was studying in the south of France, way back in college. And I had read in the guidebook that in Provence, the best time to eat goat's milk cheese, because it's a specialty of the region, is in the springtime for that reason. And that's when I learned about the seasonality of milk. Milk does change according to the seasons, and it's not always available throughout the year, especially with sheep and goat's milk. So this song, as I had mentioned before, is full of excited anticipation and romance and a lot of butterflies in the stomach, but there is one moment that I did want to point out, and that's just before the third verse. You'll hear it. It's not a sung moment, it's an instrumental moment. And during that time, the music turns a little bit minor. It's a little scary. And I thought that was a great reminder that in every new romance, every new adventure, there's that excitement, but also a little bit maybe of nuance or the unknown, uncertainty. And I think that moment captures that sort of feeling while remaining overall quite happy. And the way that's captured in the cheese, I think, is towards the finish because it's such a long and surprisingly rich finish. It's sort of, it's a great counter to the wonderful brightness and the garlic freshness of the first taste. And as it sits on your tongue, it grows more and more nuanced and more flavorful with more and more depth. So, villanelle. Villanelle is a country dance. It means a simple country dance. And with that, let us dance away to springtime.
Quand viendra la saison nouvelle, quand auront disparu les froids, tous les deux nous irons, ma belle, pour cueillir le muguet au bois. Sous nos pieds grenons les belles que l'on voit au matin trembler. Nous irons écouter les merles, nous irons écouter les merles siffler. Le printemps est venu, ma belle, c'est le mois des amants baignés. Et l'oiseau scintillant son aile disait vers le rebord du nid. Oh, viens donc sur ce banc de mousse pour parler de nos beaux amours. Et dis-moi de ta voix si douce, et dis-moi de ta voix si douce, toujours. Loin, bien loin, égarons nos courses, faisons fuir le lapin caché. Et loin au miroir les sources, admirons son grand bois penché. Puis chez nous, toutes heureux, toutes aises, en panier, en laissant nos doigts. Revenons rapportant des fraises, revenons rapportant des fraises des bois.
Alrighty, now we get to move on to the otherworldly part of this song cycle, and there's actually quite a lot of that. We visit le spectre de la rose, the specter of the rose, and that is with cheese number 3, Rosie's Robiola. It looks like this. There is also a hibiscus marmalade, which I don't have with me, but that comes in a little jar and it's labeled as a hibiscus marmalade from Casa Market. All right. Oh, I love this. Anyway, the story in this song is about a woman. She has to go to a ball one evening, and so goes into her garden, plucks a rose from that garden, wears the rose at her breast, attends the party, and the rose has the best night of its life. It's surrounded by glittering beauty and the night sky, and of course at the end of the evening, because it's been plucked, it dies. However, the spirit of the rose returns the following night at the bedside of the woman. He is elated at having lived this beautiful night with her, and vows to return every night so that he can dance at her bedside, reliving that moment. He also exalts in having such a beautiful woman's breast as his tomb. So it is a song of devotion that extends far beyond our mortal life. This cheese, Rosie's Robiola, comes to us from just north of Durham, North Carolina. Boxcar Handmade Cheese is the maker. Boxcar is actually owned by a brother and sister team, Austin and Samantha Genke. They left home at a young age to work in the food industry. Austin was in the restaurant world, and Samantha worked actually in the grocery world with Whole Foods for most of her grocery career. After a decade, they decided that they wanted to start their own businesses, and so they were living across the street from each other. Samantha decided to go full on with the cheese. She hired a cheesemaker trained in Northern Italian styles of cheesemaking to build her repertoire, and that's why we have Rosie's Robiola, her take on the Robiola style of cheese, which is from Northern Italy. And it's called Rosie's Robiola because it's named after her daughter, Rosie. Now, the notes that you're going to get from this, it's so lovely. I just love it's fresh cream and butter, but also really wonderful deep mushroom note. And then at the end, towards the long finish, you're going to get a sort of slate mineral note. It's quite restrained. So then the marmalade, of course, is it's a rich, rich red, deep crimson, and has a rather tart, bright flavor. So I chose this pairing because I wanted a cheese that is elegant and refined and delicate to represent this woman, because after all, she must be all of these things. She attends balls on a regular basis, and she has a beautiful garden where she has a number of roses to choose from anytime she has an event to attend. The rose is, of course, not living, it's a ghost, and so it takes on a more fluid form, which is the marmalade. However, it has a very strong personality, so it's represented in that deep red color of the marmalade. So the pluck of that rose is still very apparent, even though it has no corporeal form, like the woman. I did want to also add that mushroom. That mushroom is a wonderful reminder of this woman's mortal form. She is going to age at some point, and yet the rose will still remain with her. There are a couple of lines in the song that I thought were really telling about the union between the rose and this woman. First off is when the rose says that he's going to come to her every night and dance at her bedside because he's just so in love with the memory of this event. The second is at the very end when he says, "On this alabaster I rest, it is my tomb," of course referring to the woman's breast, and he does so at the end, just blissful. He says he will be the envy of all kings. It's a really beautiful poetic moment. And so as you enjoy your tasting the cheese with the marmalade, I invite you to play with your food. I invite you to figure out different configurations of the cheese and marmalade / rose and woman, however you feel best exemplifies their relationship. I also invite you to use your noses here, because there's another beautiful line where the rose says, "This light perfume is my soul." Now, normally in a concert setting, we don't get to smell anything, we don't get to touch anything. We're sitting in a small seat surrounded by a lot of other people and expected to remain relatively quiet. But here, this is why I love pairing cheese with music. These words in the music allow us to play with our senses in the cheese in totally new ways. So take a sniff of the marmalade, take a sniff of that cheese. As you can see, I've been sniffing it. It smells absolutely divine, buttery and mushroomy in ways that I love. And so play around with the union of this rose and this woman as we visit the story of the specter of the rose.
tu puisses le chasser. Toutes les nuits, mon spectre rose à ton chevet viendra danser. Ne crains rien, je ne réclame ni messe ni de profundis. Ce léger parfum est mon âme, ce léger parfum est mon âme, et j'arrive d'y parler. J'arrive du paradis. Modeste fille digne d'envie, et pour avoir un sort si beau, plus l'heure est de nuit s'éveille, car sur ton sage et mon tombeau, et sur la bâtre je repose, un poète avec un baiser écrivit. Si gîte une rose que tous les rois vont jalouser.
All right, I have been reading your comments, and I hear that some of you are having a hard time keeping up with the cheese eating while the music is playing because they're short. I invite you to eat the cheese whenever you'd like. You can just eat at your leisure. Just try and keep a little bit of that cheese for when it shows up in the program. But please start eating and drinking, for that matter. This is only fun when we can eat and drink. And the other thing I wanted to add was tag me in your pictures. I know some of you are making really gorgeous cheese boards right now, and I want to see them and share them. So please tag Miss Cheesemonger and Cheese Plus. And if you'd like to use the hashtag Miss Cheesemonger Sings, please feel free to do that as well. I really want to see what you're creating over there. This cheese recital is new in a lot of ways, not only with the virtual format, but it allows all of you to be creative as well. So with that, please keep eating, and we will move on to song number 4 and cheese number 4, Sur les lagunes, on the lagoons. So this cheese is Midnight Moon, and don't forget, this is critical, you need to also add this seaweed dulce. It should be in a little plastic container with the lid labeled dulce. They go together in this piece. All right, so the story is, well, it's a lament. It's actually the saddest song in the whole program. I know, if you were hoping for an all-around happy and easygoing classical music experience, you were wrong. This is gonna make you cry, and there's quite a lot of crying in this piece. So the main character is lamenting the death of his beloved, and he's so miserable. He alternates between low crying and then high wailing and then everything in between. Finally, he reaches some sort of peace. And that peace, well, it has to do with the sea. The sea is the other character in this song. You can hear it in the accompaniment. You can hear it in the rocking, sort of at the very beginning of the piece, and then you can hear it sound a lot like lapping waves at the very end as the music fades out. So there's a line that's repeated several times in the song that I think is very emblematic of the whole mood, as it changes in meaning every time he sings it. It says, "Ah, loveless to go to the sea. Ah, without my love I go to the sea." Now, what is he going to do at the sea? We don't really know. I mean, it sounds a lot like he's going to drown himself, but it could also mean that he just needs some time to reflect and be alone, even though he's rowing out into the middle of the ocean in the middle of the night. I will let you use your imagination and try and imagine what he could be scheming there. So the music does end on a sort of ambiguous note. He sounds a little relieved, maybe hopeful towards the very end. There's definitely a shift in mood that comes with that lapping waves sound that you're going to hear in the piano, which is marvelously played by Margaret Halbig. It's a very meditative ending to an all in all rather stormy and anguished piece. So this cheese, Midnight Moon, is made by Cypress Grove Creamery. They're based in California, in Arcata. Midnight Moon, or let's say Cypress Grove, was founded in 1983 by Mary Keene, and she's actually one of America's pioneering artisan cheesemakers. She's one of the OGs. She started experimenting with goat's milk cheese in the late 70s, when I think she just saw a neighbor who had a couple of goats, and the neighbor said something like, "If you can catch them, you can keep them." So she caught a couple and started making fresh chèvre. And when she opened Cypress Grove in 1983, that's what she made. And of course, the landscape of artisan cheese at the time consisted of, American cheese slices and maybe some Colby Jack. There was really not a lot happening in artisan cheese. And yet, Mary thrived. She thrived. And not only that, she expanded her line eventually to include Humboldt Fog in 1992. And of course, Humboldt Fog, with its signature ash line through the center, is probably one of America's favorite cheeses, period. Maybe that and Mount Tam. Those are probably the two top. But she kept growing. She kept growing through the 90s. And in 1998, Mary added some hard cheeses to her line. However, she did not make hard cheeses herself, so she partnered with some cheesemakers in the Netherlands to do that with her. And those cheeses were Midnight Moon and another cheese called Lamb Chopper. Now, because these cheeses are made in the Netherlands, they are Gouda-style cheeses, so they're rather sweet when you taste them. Midnight Moon has a wonderful sort of ivory, sometimes rosy colored paste, which looks a lot like a moon. It has a lot of little eyes throughout here. Here's an eye. Those are the little holes that are spread throughout the paste. When you bite into it, you're going to notice that very pleasant protein crystal crunch that everybody loves. It's not salt, they are proteins. As cheese ages and breaks down, the amino acids clump together and create these crunchy crystals. So you're also going to notice, as you bite into it, some butterscotch notes, brown butter, that wonderful, almost dessert sweetness in the cheese. And of course, everything is coated on the outside by this beautiful black wax. And the seaweed. Now the seaweed, dulse, this one comes to us from Canada. It grows in the northern Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. Has a really wonderful, oh my gosh, it has a very almost bacon aroma, and when you taste it, it tastes, well, oceanic, of course, and mineral. There's a lot of iron, so you're gonna taste something almost metallic and mineral, in addition to this bacon undertone that kind of is the floor of everything that you're going to experience. So I chose this pairing because of one line in particular in the song. It says, "Sur moi la nuit immense s'étend comme un linceul." So over me the immense night spreads like a shroud. This character feels the night sort of covering him like a death shroud. And I thought that Midnight Moon was the perfect cheese to encapsulate the moment because of its name. Of course, Midnight Moon, everything here is taking place in the middle of the night. And of course, the paste and these little eyes look a lot like a moon. And this black rind refers or does a great job representing that black shroud of night that covers our speaker as he wallows in his anguish. Now, of course, the seaweed, because everything is taking place on a boat, on the ocean, as you taste this pairing together, is seriously one of the most mind-blowing pairings that I have discovered in the past few years. So I'm really excited about this one. This dulce, that sort of like harshness that you kind of sense when you smell it, it goes away. It melts away, and it's tempered by the sweetness of this Midnight Moon, by that butterscotch note. That metallic sort of taste, it melts away, and all you get is just a general sense of umami and depth, just like the depths of the ocean. And over top, of course, our Midnight Moon floats as it gazes down at the events of this song as they take place. So it's a beautiful, dark, of course, romantic, gothic setting. And I invite us all to explore the lagoon with the song Sur les lagunes.
Ma belle amie est morte. Je pleurerai toujours sous la tombe. Elle emporte mon âme et chante ma romance que le ciel entend seul. Oh, comme elle était belle, et comme je l'aimais, je n'aimerai jamais une femme autant qu'elle. Que mon sort est amer, que mon sort est amer. Ah, sans amour s'en aller sur la mer. S'en aller sur la mer.
I love that cheese. Midnight Moon. And I guess you guys love it too. Especially my family, based on the comments. So, let us move on to our next piece. Song number 5 and cheese number 5. The cheese paired with this piece is called Alp Blossom. It is the one that is covered on the outside with flowers. Go figure. All right. So in this piece, this is a song about distance. The speaker here, he repeats a refrain 3 times, saying, "Come back, my love, come back. Without you, I am like a flower far from the sun, far from your vermilion smile." We learn then that the beloved of this person, she's gone away. She's not dead, but she's far, and we just don't know if these two will ever be reunited. We don't know if she'll ever come back, or if he can ever reach her, because during the verses, there are 2 of them, he expounds on that theme of distance. All he can talk about is, the distance between our kisses, and all of the mountains and the valleys that separate us. So we get a sense that a journey is in order. Our cheese, Alp Blossom, is made in the Austrian Alps, made by Sennerei Huban. Sennerei Huban is considered Austria's first cheese school. They also obviously make this cheese. They age it for 6 months and then send it to Bavaria in Germany, where there's apparently like one lady who knows the secret formula for the flowers and herbs coating the outside of the cheese, and she coats them all individually after the aging process. So as you bite into this cheese, you're going to notice a very strong floral note, and then it kind of settles into a more herbaceous note. That's thanks to the herbs on the outside, on the rind, and then it kind of settles into like a chicken broth. I'm envisioning my grandma's chicken broth as I eat this cheese, because that finish is exactly what it tastes like to me. And of course, smell is deeply tied to memory. So what I taste may not be what you taste. Maybe you have different memories and different flavors and different notes associated with different smells, and that's totally okay. Cheese is a wonderfully subjective object, and cheese tasting is a wonderfully subjective activity that is all shaped by your own personal experience. So I chose this pairing again because of that theme of distance. This person singing this song is definitely in despair. He doesn't know what to do. He says that his beloved is so far away that a horse's feet would get tired trying to cross that distance. Well, speaking of feet, cows, obviously. Cow's milk is necessary in making this cheese, brown Swiss cows. and they definitely use their feet every year as they find their grazing grounds. Now, alpine cheeses and other cheeses where animals graze in the mountains, they rely on a process called transhumance in the making. Transhumance actually refers to a journey made by the animals, in this case these brown Swiss cows, up the slopes of the Alps to their preferred grazing grounds at altitude. And during the spring and summer months, these cows can munch on a unique blend of grasses and herbs that have unique qualities that are a result of their high altitude and unique environment. And the milk that results from that, well, you can taste it in the cheese. It's wonderfully rich, refreshing, flavorful, all of the wonderful things that make Alp Blossom special. And then at the end of the grazing season, before the snow hits, these cows come back down the mountain. They are often adorned in flower wreaths and bells and are celebrated by the community because they do offer so much to the community. Alp Blossom is an Alpine-style cheese. Alpine-style cheeses were made traditionally in large format wheels as a way to make spring and summer milk last through the cold winters when there were definitely fewer nutritious things to be had. So, this pairing. Distance. These cows walk enormous distances to eat and then to create the milk that they do, and which is used to make this wonderful cheese. And of course the speaker at one point says, between here and there, there's only countryside, there are hamlets, there are towns, there are valleys and mountains. How can I ever reach you with all of these things in the way? Well, these cows do that all the time. They do that every year. It's part of their normal cycle. And as we get to eat this cheese and contemplate that theme of distance and enormously challenging environments, but also beautiful ones, we get to appreciate that at the same time this speaker realizes and appreciates enormous distances and enormously challenging and beautiful landscapes. So, with that, let us visit l'absence. How did you like that? I wanted to add a couple of notes before we moved on about the flowers. Yes, you can eat them. And this is a common practice actually in Alpine cheese making to cover the outside with flowers, which gives an extra taste of the region, which is related to the idea of terroir, where the environment can influence the flavor of a cheese or another food item. And the flowers definitely enhance that. Moreover, this is an Alpine style cheese, so if you are wondering, this maybe sounds or tastes a lot like another cheese I know. Some other famous Alpine style cheeses are Gruyere, Comté, Salers, Beaufort. They are made at high altitudes, and again, they're really meant to be hearty cheeses. So I hope this was a nourishing cheese for you, even though the theme was pretty desolate. With that, let us move to song number 6 and cheese number 6. Cheese number 6 is this. It is nicknamed Trufa La Mancha. Song number 6 is called Au Cimetière, at the cemetery. Now in this piece, we have a guy. He says he says to a third party, a random third party. It could be you. He says, "Hey, do you know this place, this cemetery? There's a dove that sings there," and he starts describing the place. But as he starts describing it, he gets lost in his own thoughts. He hears that dove singing, and that dove is a trigger for him. He realizes that it's not good that he listened to this dove, but he can't pull away. And why is that? Well, we learn that his beloved is buried beneath the earth. We assume that she has died some time ago, and she inhabits the underworld right now. At one moment he says, the dove song, my beloved's voice is in unison with the dove's cry, and clearly he remembers all sorts of things. It's a song of memory, and he feels overwhelmed at some point. Eventually, the song calms down a bit. We see a ghost walking through the cemetery. A ghost, the first appearance of this ghost. He is sort of intoxicated by his surroundings, the perfume of the flowers in the cemetery, the environment, and the ghost approaches him and invites him to join her. Now he pulls away, but then he hears that dove cry again, and it's not clear whether or not he succeeds in the end. The music changes in a way that implies that maybe he didn't get away this time. Maybe he is pulled back by his old memories, his old love, the nostalgia for the life he used to have with this person who is now gone, but now inhabits this graveyard. This cheese, Trufa La Mancha, its real name is pretty generic in Spanish, queso de oveja trufado, so just truffled sheep's milk cheese. It's made by a cheesemaker named Vega Sotuelamos in the La Mancha region of Spain, land of Don Quixote, and also La Mancha goats. Now, it is essentially a truffle-infused manchego. However, because manchego is a protected term, only cheeses that don't have added ingredients and follow a very specific recipe can be called manchego. And so now we have this nickname coined by folks at Cheese Plus, Trufa La Mancha. It's much easier to remember, and it really just evokes all the important stuff, the truffle and the region, La Mancha. So, of course, it's pretty hot here in my living room, and so this cheese is melting a little bit, but you're going to taste a sort of, I imagine it's like a sun-kissed grass smell, along with a toasted almond note, and topped by that wonderful musky truffle aroma. Now, the truffle is shot through the paste and also on the outside. So, why this pairing? Well, I wanted a cheese that really could represent any cheese. Just like this guy in the song, he kind of represents any guy. He could be somebody you cross in a cafe or at the grocery store, and then he'll just stop you and say, "Hey, do you know this place?" And I mean, it could just be a banal exchange, but then you just kind of scratch below the surface and you realize this man is not like any other man. He's haunted. He is haunted by this ghost of this person that he loved and still does, but she's no longer there. And so this cheese, like this man, I consider them leading parallel existences. The man is haunted by the memory of this person he loves, just as this cheese is sort of haunted by this truffle. The truffle visibly twists through the body of the cheese and along the outside, blackening everything around it, and of course, infusing everything we smell with that musky truffle aroma. Just as the man, as he visits the graveyard, he senses the ghost of his beloved twisting through his body, affecting his movements, affecting his mind in a similar way. Now, truffle and ghosts. I imagine the ghost and the truffle also lead parallel existences. Because, well, truffle is a fungus. It lives below the earth and then needs to be dug up and then sent to kitchens around the world, where diners around the world are wonderfully delighted and seduced by its wonderful black color, beautiful musky aroma, and aphrodisiac properties. Similarly with the ghost here. She inhabits the underworld. She exists in her tomb until she is called up by this dove song. She wanders the graveyard, eventually meeting the man, and uses her own powers of seduction, maybe like those aphrodisiac qualities, to try and convince the man to join her. This man and this cheese, they are both haunted. And of course, this begs the question, does the man want to be haunted? Is this something he truly wants to escape from? It's not clear, and the song is very ambiguous about that point. However, the mood is wonderfully sensuous and sensual. So again, I invite you to use your nose here, take a whiff of that wonderful musky aroma, get a taste of that beautiful sunshiny grass, and let us visit the cemetery.
Connaissez-vous la bouche tombe où flotte avec son plaintif l'ombre d'un if sur les fines pâles colombes triste et seul au soleil couchant chante son chant. Un air maladivement tendre, à la fois charmant et fatal, qui vous fait mal et qu'on voudrait toujours entendre. Un air comme un souper aux cieux, l'ange amoureux. On dirait que l'homme éveillé pleure sous terre à l'unisson de la chanson. Et du malheur d'être oublié se plaint dans un recoulement bien doucement. Sur les ailes de la musique, on sent lentement revenir un souvenir. Une longue leur parfum faiblit tout autour de vous. Et le fantôme me pose, murmurant vous tendant les bras, tu reviendras. Oh, jamais plus près de la tombe, je n'irai qu'en descend le soir au manteau noir. Écoutez la pâle colombe chanter sur la pointe de l'île. So plaintive.
I hear you guys like the fog machine. I do too. We made sure to use it as often as possible without being tacky about it, but I did enjoy that experience. It went really well with the ghostly theme and the cemetery and all that, so ambiance. All right, we are on to our last song of the song cycle, but not the last song of the concert. We are up to number 7. Number 7, L'Île Inconnue, the Unknown Island, and that is paired with Roaring Forties Blue. So, in this piece, okay, we get to say goodbye to all the ghosts and the sadness. We have a sort of hopeful song here, a song of seduction. In this piece, a ship's captain tries to convince a woman to tell him where she would like to go, because he says he can take her anywhere. Anywhere. He keeps pressing her, and eventually she says, oh, well, I would like to go to the place where lovers remain faithful to each other forever. And he kind of chuckles and says, well, we don't really know about that place here. I mean, maybe a little hint, but I'll take you anywhere else, like literally anywhere else. And the song ends on a sort of ambiguous note. We don't know if she accepts his offer or what. So it's an interesting sort of a way to end, ambiguous way to end the cycle. So I did say he's a ship's captain, but we also learned that his ship is actually not real. So we've got a fake ship going on, and how do we know? Well, he says things like, well, my cabin boy is a seraphim, and my steering wheel is an orange, and the angel's wings are my sails. So, you know, he's just puffing air. This cheese, Roaring Forties Blue, comes to us from King Island Dairy. They're based on, of course, King Island, which is located somewhere around Tasmania, Australia. It's a cow's milk cheese, and it's actually one of my first favorite cheeses when I started as a cheesemonger. That was like over 10 years ago. I was new behind the counter, and this cheese, oh my goodness, it has this wonderful, like, syrupy sweetness. Of course, okay, I'm gonna also say, this is an older wheel of this cheese, so it comes off when you taste it. There's like a little cellar funk at first, and then you get a sort of like a toasted hazelnut note, and then it finishes with this like pecan and maple syrup sweetness, and that finish just goes on for days. It's a really, really beautiful, complex, sweet cheese. So it was one of my first favorites. It knocked my socks off way back then, and today I still love it, even though it's a lot harder to find. And of course it's a blue cheese, so this is Penicillium Roqueforti, all these blue molds all over that give it its particular punchiness and of course color. All right, let me just, it's kind of a messy cheese as well. All right, so the pairing. This is a song about voyage, a ship's voyage, and so I wanted a cheese that references the nautical life, and what better way to do that than with Roaring Forties, a reference to the Roaring Forties. So there are several times in the song where the captain says, "Okay, the wind is blowing. It is time to go now." Well, the Roaring Forties are in fact a group of westerly winds that blow at the 40th latitude south, just by King Island Dairy. And during the 16th and 17th centuries, European traders would sail towards Asia and Australia and would rely on these Roaring Forties winds to reach their destinations. And even today, for anyone who's doing around the world sailing, the Roaring Forties are considered a really critical wind to help them reach their goals. However, they are also known for being particularly treacherous, and they are responsible for a number of shipwrecks. Now, this is interesting because it actually ties in directly to King Island Dairy. The story has it that in the 16th and 17th centuries, European traders, they'd sail along. Sometimes they'd succeed, and then sometimes the Roaring Forties would roar to life and cause storms and also shipwrecks. There were a number of shipwrecks all around King Island during that time. On these ships were, of course, a lot of items associated with just daily life, including mattresses. And mattresses from those ships would wash onto King Island. And inside those mattresses were seeds. Seeds that germinated on the island. And now the island is covered in beautiful, lush grass that the cows that make this cheese can graze on and produce wonderful milk that has unique properties because it is next to the sea, and the cows also supplement their diet with seaweed that washes onto shore. So we get a direct link between the Roaring Forties, these ships, the winds, trade routes, and everything that makes sea travel exciting and dangerous, and also exciting again. Where was I going with that? Oh my goodness. Right. along with promise in any adventure, there is a promise of a reward at the end. So we're talking about adventure, seafaring adventures, but also romantic adventures. There is a certain element of risk involved, of course, just like the Roaring Forties carry their own element of risk. Anytime we embark on a romantic adventure with somebody new, there are always questions to be asked. What does it take for me to say yes to this adventure? And what characteristics will I find that allow me to say no, that I'm going to walk away? So the lady in this song is kind of debating those risks as the captain continually tries to lure her in or onto his ship. And I invite you to think about, well, when was the last time you were invited on an adventure, and what does it take to get you to say yes? So let us visit l'île inconnue, the unknown island, as we contemplate life choices like this.
La voile offre son aile. chère, on ne la connaît guère. Cette rive, ma chère, on ne la connaît guère. Au pays des amours, on ne la connaît guère. On ne la connaît guère au pays des amours. Où voulez-vous aller? La brise va souffler.
So according to the comments, apparently all it takes to lure you over is just cheese, which, well, we've done it. Here's some cheese for you. And someone else also mentioned that they came late. If you if you have shown up late today, this link is going to be live for a couple weeks. So you can rewatch the parts that you missed, or you can just rewatch the whole concert if you really feel like recreating the entire experience again. I am okay with that. So I also hear that you're stuffed, which is great. That's my goal. All right, so we move on to our last pairing. Last pairing, best pairing. It's paired with these little candies called Rabitos Royale. No cheese this time because I figured you would be stuffed at this point. All right, this song, number 8. Number 8 is called Nuit d'Espagne, Starry Night, Spanish Night. We're ending with a Spanish night. And the theme is very similar to L'Île Inconnue in that it is a song of seduction, but with a Spanish flavor. And it takes place at night. And the metaphors, instead of being nautical, are night and land-based. So in this song, some dude is trying to win over a woman, but she's worried not about faithful love, but she's worried that people are going to see them, and she really doesn't want that. So the rest of the song include references to the dark sky that will cover them, the dark forest that will protect them and protect them from prying eyes, and on the dark road so nobody can see where they're heading off to together. This pairing, Rabitos Royale, is a Mediterranean fig that has been infused with brandy and is coated in chocolate. So it's actually Ray, the owner of Cheese Plus, who came up with this pairing after I described this song to him. He really liked that idea of cover because the night really protects these two lovers from being seen. And so this pairing is pretty straightforward. The cover, of course, is represented by the chocolate. The brandy represents the inhibitions that the lady must drop for this seduction to be successful. And the fruit, the fig, well, I will let you use your imaginations to figure out what the fig may mean to you. So with that, let us visit Nuit d'Espagne, Spanish Night.
Voici l'instant de l'amour.
I have a question for you. Who among you finished the cheese? Because there's a lot of it. I think there's like a pound plus. There's a little bit more than a pound. I want to know who finished their cheese because, yeah, questions. Anyway, there we have it. This is the Cheese Recital 2021. Thank you so much for attending. I did want to thank a few people without whose help we could not have done this. First off, Dr. Julia Hunt-Nielsen, my voice teacher. Margaret Halbig at the piano. Wonderful, silky piano playing from her. Ray Bear, the owner of Cheese Plus, and his team, Sam, Kima, RV, Joe, and of course his lovely wife, Kate, who will always have the best seat in the house. Alex Cruz Vergara, our videographer, he's right over there. Sasha Cook, thank you for your coaching and helping me explore new ways to play with French language. Jan, Monsieur Cheesemonger himself, who has been responding to your comments back there. Sarah Valishko, who has worn about 6 or 7 different hats during the production of this concert. She's been my wardrobe supervisor, assistant sound engineer, just prop master, general set assistant, and more. And of course, you. Thank you all for attending today, and thank you so much for helping me live my cheesy music, weird dreams. I really appreciate all of your support. And of course, this year's virtual format's been really strange, but I do hope I get to see each and every one of you in person very soon, hopefully for the next cheese recital. All right, so there you have it. I would like to leave you all with one musical note, just music, no cheese. And again, I express my heartfelt thanks to all of you for attending. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a good evening.
Des yeux qui font baisser les miens, un rire qui se perd sur sa bouche, voilà le portrait sans retouche de l'homme auquel j'appartiens. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est lui pour moi, moi pour lui dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. Des nuits d'amour à plus en finir, un grand bonheur qui prend sa place, des ennuis, des chagrins s'effacent, heureux, heureux à en mourir. Quand il me prend dans ses bras, il me parle tout bas, je vois la vie en rose. Il me dit des mots d'amour, des mots de tous les jours, et ça me fait quelque chose. Il est entré dans mon cœur une part de bonheur dont je connais la cause. C'est toi pour moi, moi pour toi dans la vie. Il me l'a dit, l'a juré pour la vie. Et dès que je l'aperçois, alors je sens en moi mon cœur qui bat. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
wait, you guys are still here? Wait, it's my turn to eat the cheese now, so I'm going to enjoy this. But I also want to tell you, don't forget to share on social and tag Miss Cheesemonger. Okay, I'll see you online. Bye, guys.